Okay, let's take a trip to the future. It is February 2026.
Right.
And the global real estate market is, well, it's essentially having a nervous breakdown. If you walk into the boardrooms of the big giants, CBRE, JLL, the heavy hitters in New York or London, the mood is tense.
Tense is putting it mildly. It's an existential crisis, really.
Because the algorithms, they've finally grown up. We spent years hearing AI is coming, and now, it's here.
It's here.
It's writing the listing copy, it's building the valuation models, it's doing all the heavy lifting that used to employ thousands of junior brokers. And the trillion-dollar question that's keeping everyone awake is, if the bot can do the math, the legal checks, and the marketing in 3 seconds, why on earth do we need the humans?
And that is the classic efficiency trap. I mean, in highly structured markets like the U.S., where everything is data, AI is proving it can do the job faster.
Yeah.
And cheaper. So the panic is, it's very real.
But, and this is why we're doing this deep dive today, we're going to pivot. We're going to look at a place that's watching all this panic and is, well, basically shrugging its shoulders.
Yeah.
We have this fascinating analysis from Jamaica Homes. It dropped just this week, February 12, 2026.
A really, really compelling piece of work.
And the title just sets the tone immediately. From yard to skyline. Why AI can't replace the Jamaican real estate hustle.
Love that title.
The central idea is just so refreshing. They basically say, look, Jamaica's not Manhattan. And they argue that trying to import this American anxiety into the Caribbean is, and I'm quoting here, intellectually lazy.
That's a sharp critique, but, when you peel back the layers, it's incredibly accurate. The source argues that the whole Jamaican real estate ecosystem, it runs on a completely different operating system.
A different operating system.
Yeah, it's not built on standardized data. It's built on history, inheritance, and this very complex web of relationships.
So the mission for this deep dive is to figure out why. Why is the hustle, that unique Jamaican blend of formal and informal business, so uniquely resistant to automation?
To understand that, you first have to understand what AI actually needs to survive. AI is a picky eater. It feeds on clean, consistent, standardized data.
Okay, so give me an example of that clean food.
Take a condo in Chicago. It's in a zoned grid. The title is digital, and it's clear. The square footage is recorded in a municipal database that hasn't changed in 50 years.
Right.
So institutional investors can trade these things like stocks because the data is it's perfect.
You feed the template to the machine, it spits out the value.
Exactly. Now, drop that same sophisticated AI into the Jamaican landscape that's described in this report. The source uses this great contrast, standardization versus fragmentation.
Right.
In Jamaica, you don't have a clean grid. You have a mosaic. The report mentions you can have formal subdivisions sitting literally right next to informal settlements.
And that's the nightmare scenario for an algorithm, isn't it?
Absolutely. You might have a registered land title on one side of a fence, perfectly legal, easy to value.
Yeah.
But on the other side, you've got what's called a possessory claim.
Okay, let's unpack that term, because it sounds legal, but it implies something very, very practical on the ground.
It does. In data terms, a possessory claim is basically a black hole. It means a family has lived there for generations. They've fenced it, they've farmed it, the whole community knows it is theirs.
Right.
But they don't have that official piece of paper from the registrar of titles.
So if I'm an AI scraping a database, I see a plot of land that appears to have, what, no owner? Or the boundaries are all fuzzy?
Or the data just flat out contradicts itself. And this is really where that Manhattan versus Jamaica comparison just breaks down. In Manhattan, the main variable is price. In Jamaica, the variable is validity.
Validity.
Is the title clean? Is the boundary where the map says it is, or is it where the goat fence is? AI thrives on patterns, but the Jamaican market is defined by its exceptions.
The source also talks about blind spots. I thought this was one of the most compelling parts of the analysis. It touches on these physical realities that just don't show up on a screen.
This is the classic boots on the ground argument.
Right.
An AI can scrape the internet. It can tell you that a 3-bedroom house in St. Catherine is listed for X amount.
Sure.
It can compare that to the house next door. Math is math. But what the AI doesn't know is that the specific access road to that scheme floods every single time it rains hard.
And that is a deal breaker. I mean, you can't live in a house you can't get to in October.
Exactly. It changes the value completely, or, take community dynamics. The AI doesn't know that the Citizens Association is currently fighting a war over street lighting.
I know.
Or that the water pressure drops to 0 on weekends because the pump is broken.
Because that information isn't digitized. It's not in some government database.
No, it's in the heads of the people living there. The source calls this lived intelligence. It is organic, not artificial.
I love that distinction, lived intelligence versus artificial intelligence.
And it goes beyond just the current state of things.
Yeah.
The report mentions future infrastructure. An AI might see a quiet rural plot and value it as, agricultural land.
Right, based on current data.
But a human broker, one who is plugged in, knows there's a bypass road proposed that's going to turn that quiet plot into a prime commercial hub in 5 years.
That speculative insight,
Yeah.
that ability to connect dots that aren't even on the page yet, that's where the machine just fails.
Which leads us to the concept that I think creates the strongest visual in this whole deep dive.
Which is?
The veranda factor.
The veranda factor. It sounds like a spy novel, but it's really about how business actually gets done.
It's the perfect metaphor for Caribbean business. In the U.S., we assume the deal is driven by the spreadsheet, yield rates, cap rates, ROI.
The numbers.
But the source argues that in Jamaica, the deal, the real deal, happens on the veranda.
Because the biggest hurdle isn't usually the price. It's the complexity of the ownership, isn't it?
Exactly. They give this vivid example of Granny's Land in Clarendon. So imagine a scenario where the matriarch passes away. Maybe she didn't leave a will, or the will is 50 years old.
Which, as anyone with Caribbean roots knows, is incredibly common.
It's the standard. So now you have 3 generations of cousins, aunts, and uncles who all have a claim to this one piece of property.
Oh, wow.
And one cousin wants to sell to a developer. The aunt wants to keep her for the grandkids. The uncle is living on the back lot, and he refuses to move.
And they are all looking at each other with decades of family baggage.
Precisely. Now imagine asking ChatGPT to mediate that. Please resolve 40 years of family tension and historical grievances regarding the mango tree on the north boundary.
It would probably just suggest a lawsuit, which is the last thing anyone wants.
It can't do it. An AI cannot sit on that veranda, drink the lemonade, and listen to the tone of the uncle's voice to figure out that he's not actually angry about the price. He's angry because he feels left out of the decision-making process.
That's the nuance. It's emotional forensics.
Dean Jones, the founder of Jamaica Homes, has this really poetic line in the report. He says, "Property in Jamaica is not just square footage and price per acre. It is history, inheritance, and hope stitched together. No algorithm can feel that."
History, inheritance, and hope. That really elevates the role of the agent, doesn't it? We tend to think of real estate agents as salespeople.
Oh, right.
But this makes them sound more like diplomats.
In this context, they are diplomats.
Yeah.
The source explicitly lists the roles. Counselor, mediator, advisor. They're managing financing gaps, sure, but more importantly, they are managing fear and pride.
Fear and pride, those are powerful motivators.
They're the deal killers. A spreadsheet doesn't have pride, but a seller who feels disrespected by a lowball offer, that's pride. A first-time buyer in Portmore who is terrified of signing a 30-year mortgage because their parents never owned land, that's fear. An AI can generate the mortgage contract, but it cannot look that buyer in the eye and give them the confidence to sign it.
Exactly. As the report says, only people can read the room. Okay, I want to play the skeptic for a minute. Because usually, when industries say, machines can't replace us, it sounds a bit like denial.
Sure.
Like taxi drivers saying Uber won't work. The source isn't completely anti-technology, is it? This isn't some Luddite manifesto.
No, and that's a very important distinction to make. They are not saying don't use AI. They are arguing for recalibration. There's a very specific yes list in the report. Things that AI is actually fantastic for in the Jamaican market.
So where do the robots actually win?
The drudgery, the repetition. Drafting property descriptions is a big one. You know, in the past, an agent would spend an hour staring at a screen trying to write a flowery description for a villa. Now, 10 seconds.
It frees up an hour to go sit on that veranda we talked about.
Exactly. Data analysis is another huge win. Comparing rental yields between Mobay and Ochi, or tracking price movements in Kingston 6 versus St. Catherine, AI crushes that.
All right.
It can streamline due diligence checklists, generate social media campaigns instantly. It handles the back end.
So it handles the science of the job.
It handles the science so the human can handle the art. And the argument here is that for smaller brokerages, this is a massive leveler.
How so?
Well, think about the barrier to entry. 10 years ago, if you wanted to compete with the big firms, you needed a marketing department, a data analyst, a copywriter. You needed significant overhead.
Now you just need a subscription.
Exactly. A single, savvy, independent agent in Mandeville can now have the output of a 5-person team. It amplifies their productivity. It doesn't remove the human, it gives them a superpower.
I love that note in the text about how Jamaica essentially invented social networking long before Zuckerberg or TikTok.
The neighbor network.
The neighbor who knows the house is for sale before the owner has even told their spouse.
It's funny, but it's actually technically profound. In a fragmented market like Jamaica, information doesn't always travel through fiber optic cables or MLS listings.
Right.
It travels through reputation. It travels through gossip, frankly. And you can't scrape gossip.
Not yet, anyway.
Not yet. That bush telegraph is still the most efficient data network in the Jamaican ecosystem. If you're a broker who isn't plugged into that human network, all the AI in the world won't help you find the deal.
Let's talk about the money. Because in the U.S., the big threat of AI is fee compression. The logic is, if the bot does the work, clients are going to demand lower commissions. Why am I paying you 6% if ChatGPT wrote the listing?
And that's a valid fear in the US and UK, where the service is often seen as a commodity. But the source argues that in Jamaica, the fee structure is just different. It's already lean.
Brokers aren't exactly rolling in easy cash.
No. They often cover their own marketing, their own fuel. And if you drive in Jamaica, you know gas is no joke, plus admin costs. It's performance-based. If the deal doesn't close, they don't eat.
So the argument is that AI actually defends the commission.
It does. Think about it. If anyone can use AI to write a perfect listing description, then the description itself becomes worthless. It's a commodity. So where does the value go?
It migrates to the things the AI can't do.
Correct. The value shifts to pricing strategy, to negotiation, to navigating the bureaucracy of the titles office. The source puts it this way. Anyone can generate a description. Not everyone can price correctly.
That makes sense.
If you're just a door opener, AI will kill your business.
Yeah.
But if you're a strategic advisor, you just became more valuable because all the noise has increased. The bar gets raised.
And this must apply even more to the commercial side.
Oh, absolutely. Jamaican commercial real estate is a different beast entirely. It's a very tight ecosystem.
Smaller.
Much smaller. And it's driven by very specific human factors. Diaspora investment, tourism flows, local banking appetites.
The diaspora angle is huge, isn't it? Jamaicans living abroad, Toronto, New York, London, sending money back to build or buy.
It's a massive capital flow. Now, an AI can model the cash flow of a commercial plaza in Montego Bay. It can tell you the cap rate. But can it know which specific investor in Toronto is currently looking to diversify because they're thinking of retiring back home in 2 years?
No. That requires a phone call. That requires knowing the family.
It requires knowing the person, not just the asset. You need a broker who understands the landscape of people.
Which brings us back to what I think is the emotional core of this report. They call it the emotional economy of ownership.
This is something you really feel when you spend time in the market there. You have to understand what yard means. It's more than just a slang term for home.
Much more.
For many Jamaicans, buying land is a declaration. It's not just a transaction. It's proof of progress. It's security. Dean Jones had another great quote on this.
What was it?
He said, "It is a declaration that you belong and that your future has roots."
That's powerful stuff. And when you're dealing with something that heavy, that loaded with meaning, you need hand-holding. You can't automate empathy.
You can't.
Let's imagine that buyer in Portmore again, saving for their first home. It's the biggest check they've ever written. They're nervous.
They don't understand strata fees. They hear horror stories about mortgages. They are intimidated by the legal language. They don't need a chatbot sending them a PDF.
They need someone to say, it's going to be okay. Here's how we handle it.
They need confidence. And the source is blunt about this. AI cannot build confidence. In an emotional economy, confidence is the currency.
So if we look at the verdict here, it's 2026. Is the Jamaican broker safe?
The verdict is that it's not a cage match. It's not human versus machine. It's a partnership. The future belongs to the augmented agent.
The augmented agent. I like that.
The idea is technology handles the repetition. People handle the relationships. Data informs the decision, but human judgment makes the decision.
Data informs, judgment decides.
The brokers who will struggle, and the report admits some will struggle, are the ones who refuse to adapt. But the ones who thrive will be the ones who use AI to clear their schedule so they can spend more time on the veranda.
It's almost ironic, isn't it? The technology that was supposed to make us less human might actually force the industry to become more human just to survive.
It clears the clutter. It forces you to double down on what actually matters. The relationship, the trust, The yard.
I want to leave our listeners with a thought here. We've talked about the science of real estate, the data, the forms being taken over by AI, and the art of the deal, the empathy, the intuition remaining human.
Right.
So if that trend continues, are we about to see the rise of a super broker? Someone who is less of a salesperson and more of a community diplomat?
That's a fascinating provocation.
Well, think about it. If you don't need to spend 20 hours a week writing descriptions and filing paperwork, you have 20 extra hours to just connect, to solve disputes, to connect that Toronto investor with the St. Elizabeth farmer.
You become a weaver of networks.
Exactly. And in a market like Jamaica, that seems like a much more valuable role than just salesperson.
I think that's a very hopeful vision for 2026. It suggests the future of business isn't just about efficiency, it's about depth. Being deeply rooted in the community you serve.
It makes me want to go sit on a veranda in Clarendon and just listen to some stories.
There's no better way to learn the market.
Thank you so much for walking us through this. This deep dive really flips the usual AI is coming for our jobs narrative on its head.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah.
It's always good to remember that geography and culture, they still count for something.
Absolutely. And to you listening, thanks for tuning in. Next time you see a headline about AI taking over the world, maybe ask yourself, yeah, but can it handle the veranda? We'll see you next time.